Hello, everyone. This is Attorney Ifeanyi-USImmigration immigration attorney based here in the state of Massachusetts. We are still on our discussion on the B1, B2 visa, otherwise known as the tourist visa. In fact, 2 days ago, I saw this picture of a crowd stationed outside the passport office in Lagos, scrambling to get a passport. And in Nigeria, once people are looking to obtain a passport, the general notion is that they are trying to travel out of the country either for temporary reason or permanently, to get out of the country permanently. So that is why this discussion remains very, very important. And I know if you are going to benefit from it, just pay attention. If you know someone who's going to benefit from this broadcast, just share this video to family and friends. The US remains the number one destination for most people in terms of travel, either to go and live or to visit or for school. Most times when people are going for the UK or US, Canada, it's actually because they are opting for their second choice. Either because they've already attempted US and it failed, or because they feel US is just too competitive. Therefore, they don't even want to give it a chance. But anyway, there are still people coming here anyway. So you might still stand a chance if you do the right thing. That is why this broadcast is so important, so that you don't blow your chances. As well, there are people who may never try to come to the US again because they've messed up their chance in the past because of what they did in the past in trying to apply to come to the US. For most people in Nigeria and in Africa generally, their only chance of ever making it here, like I said in my last broadcast, is through the tourist visa. Their only chance of ever making it on US soil is through the tourist visa. So that is why people should pay attention. There's nothing to rush about when it comes to it. The application process is pretty simple, but again, the denial rate is very high. That is why before you can even start the process, pay a little bit attention. Don't hand your information and the entire process into some individual who call themselves agents. Nobody has any influence on how or whether or not you are going to get this visa. But there are still people who are coming to the US through the tourist visa. The most important part of this whole process, like, when you look at the crowd out there in the passport office, I can guarantee you that a sizable number of them are going to try to come to the US. So that is why you must share this video. First of all, in trying to get a US visa, tourist visa, you must be very concise and clear as to why you want this visa. You must be very clear. The reason for coming to the US, whether you are coming on vacation, whether you are coming to visit your relatives, there are things you are expected to know. If you are coming to visit a relative here, you should know the names of your relatives. You should know the states in the US. You have 50 states in the US. You should know the state where they live. You should know a little bit of detail about these people, their names, their age, their address, and these are little questions that might come up during the interview. If you are coming on vacation and you want to visit certain sites in the US, say you want to come to Disney, you are expected to know the state where Disney is located. You are expected to have little information about where you are visiting. So you don't just say you are coming on to US for pleasure without having a clear picture of what you are coming here to do. That is number one. Number two is that when you are coming here, it is all about you. It is not about your relatives in the US. Oftentimes, people will call on their relatives in US who are US citizens or who are permanent residents here to asking for an invitation letter. Absolutely, they can write an invitation letter for you, but bear it in mind that the tourist visa, whether or not you're going to get a tourist visa, will not be based on the invitation letter that your relative will be writing. It is not going to be based on that. It is okay for them to write, to simply say that you are coming to stay, spend some time with them, but it shouldn't be, they cannot be making any kind of financial commitment as to, committing that they're going to cater for your expenses. Because when you're coming here on a tourist visa, you are expected to be able to self-fund your trip. You are expected to fund your trip by yourself, not by anyone else. You are supposed to fund it. So if your relative will make a financial commitment to your trip by way of in the invitation letter, then that will actually work against you. So when your relatives here in the US are reluctant to write, or they refuse to write, don't hold it against them. They really have little or no power over whether you are going to get a visa. One thing that is very clear about the tourist visa is that, or one thing, the most important part of this whole process is that you have to show everything about you must point to the fact that you are not coming here to stay. You are here on a visit. You just want to come temporarily and go back. And how do you show that to the officer at the embassy? There's what we call the binding ties. There are things you should have back home that ordinarily one will not expect you to abandon them and go to the US and not come back. It is called ties, your binding ties. It could be family, you have a spouse and children, and one wouldn't expect you to abandon them and go to the US and not come back. It could be that you have a secured employment, a verifiable secured employment, and you could be that you have properties, things that you will not ordinarily not abandon. You have an established business. These are what we call ties. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to trying to project that they have enough ties, things that will make them to go to the US and not come and not abandon home and come back, is that they tend to misrepresent facts. Like, I've seen so many cases where people who are still single, they will claim that they are married because they want to show the officer that they have a spouse back home that they will come back to, and that could be very, very fatal going forward on your application, or when eventually you get to the US and you maybe decide for one reason or the other, you decide to change your status. That could pose a big problem to people. So showing your ties back home, things that will ordinarily make you go back, is key to you getting a visitor's visa. But whichever way, remember that the power, the authority to issue that visa remains with the officer at the embassy. It is entirely at the discretion of that officer. When I say something is at the discretion of an officer, it means that at the point in time, the officer has the power to either decide against you coming to the US or give you grant the visa. It is entirely at their discretion. And when something is on someone's discretion, it means that even if on the face of it, you meet up all the requirements to get a visitor's visa, even if on the face of it, this officer can still deny you the visa. That is why the denial rate is very high. I am proposing that before you even make an attempt to come to the US through the tourist visa, make sure you are qualified. You take care of some of these elements. You must show something that ordinarily will make you come back to the US, to come back home. It is not enough when you don't have anything to show you, because what happens is that when you are not really ready for this visa, you go and apply for it, you get a denial, you come back in 6 months or in a year's time, you continue to have when you have this multiple denial, what it does is that you create the impression like someone who is desperate to come to the US. And then in the future, when you are actually ready, your history, they already have your record, they have everything about you in the system. Each time you make this application, it's there on record. So by the time you are ready, you may end up not being able to get it, because then they've seen that you made multiple applications. Now, there are two main reasons why people are denied visa. One is that They may deny you the tourist visa just because they feel, okay, you don't have enough ties. They don't think that you have enough ties. They deny you, you go back. In that case, you expected, if you want to reapply, you can come back in 6 months, in 1 year, and make sure by the time you are coming back, there must have been some changes to actually show them that you now have the ties, the so-called ties. But the other second reason, which is very high also, why this tourist visa is denied on a daily basis for most people, is when you misrepresent facts, when you make material misrepresentation. Just like I said, when you claim that you are married when you are not even married, or when you submit a fraudulent document, the punishment for that is permanent bar. The punishment for that is permanent bar. You will never make it to the US. So imagine where you, out of desperation, you make an application for visa, and you end up submitting a fraudulent document, and they find out, and you are denied the visa. And maybe tomorrow you have a family member who now is in a position to file for you, or you have other reasons that qualifies you to come to the US. Because of that misrepresentation that you did in the past, you may never have the chance to come to the US again. That is why you see a lot of people who, for some reason, you don't ever see them in the US. You see them in Dubai, you see them in the UK, you see them in so many other beautiful places in the world, but they don't ever come to the US because in many cases, they have done something in the past that has basically messed up their chance of ever making it to the US. Have you thought about that? There are some people that are like that. So issues of immigration are like sickness. Everybody carries his or her own. They will never tell you why they are taking certain steps or they are not taking certain steps. So whoever is looking to come to the US on a tourist visa, bear it in mind. I have made some important key points here. One is that I encourage you to do it yourself. The so-called agent are not doing anything special for you. Do it yourself. The application process is so simple. It's very, very simple. And mind you, the fees are going up soon, probably at the end of this month. So there's no point going to apply for a visa when you are not really ready for it. And you end up just contributing to the funding of the embassy because you are wasting your money. So like I said, I made a couple of points here. Be very concise. One is that you have to be very clear and concise as to the reason why you're coming here. Secondly, you should be able to fund your trip. You should have enough money to fund your trip, no matter how long you're staying here. And lastly, that you must establish ties back home, things that ordinarily will make you go back to your country. And let me wrap it up here by saying that the tourist visa does not allow you to come and work in the US. It doesn't give you a right to work and engage in any kind of business. So be mindful of that. You are not supposed to get employment. Now, if you come here and you want to change your status eventually, that is a discussion for another day. So bear it in mind that the tourist visa does not give you the right to come to the US and engage in employment. So that is the message. If you have questions on the US visa, whether it's a tourist visa, whether it's an immigrant visa, feel free to reach out to us. My number is 978-601-6099. Thank you very much. Ifeanyi-USImmigration is my name. I am an immigration attorney. I am based here in Massachusetts. Thank you and God bless.